All right, so we just cruised into 2026. This year, it's going to be big. But let's check out some of the AI happenings. First and foremost, this is somebody that's working for Google DeepMind. His name is Ronak Malde. He's from Stanford, doing reinforcement learning at Google DeepMind, previously doing research at Windsurf, which was acquired by DeepMind. Actually, there's like 3 different companies that tried to acquire Windsurf. But whatever the case, Ronak is saying this 24 was the year of agents, was the year of RL. 2026 will be the year of continual learning. Now, tons of people had an issue with that whole thing about 2024 being the year of the agent. Obviously, it depends if we're talking frontier development research, or we're talking adoption being put into actual use cases. But whatever, that's not even the point of the tweet. The point of the tweet is 2026 will be the year of continual learning. In November of this year, Google Research published this, introducing nested learning, a new machine learning paradigm for continual learning. So notice this is Ali Behrooz. You'll be seeing that name quite a bit moving forward, most likely. Here he is getting absolutely swarmed at one of the machine learning conventions. Talking about this nested learning, he was also behind the Titans architecture. Google definitely has someone focused on building out all these architectures to make machine learning better at doing these tasks. And it does seem like they're mimicking how biology did it with human brains. From the nested learning blog post, as great as the machine learning and LLM progress has been, a few fundamental challenges persist, especially around continual learning. The ability for a model to acquire new knowledge and skills over time, without forgetting the old ones. When it comes to continual learning and self-improvement, the human brain is the gold standard. It adapts through neuroplasticity. And that's the thing, while these large language models have a lot of knowledge they can rely on, they don't really have the ability to quickly learn new facts, skills, information to adapt. You can think of it as crystallized intelligence versus fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence in humans is usually at its highest when we're younger. That's what allows us to quickly adapt to new situations, to learn from limited interactions with some new environment. Whereas crystallized intelligence is drawing on your previous knowledge to figure out what to do next. That's probably more common in older people who can draw on their past experience. So these large language models are kind of like grumpy old people. They don't do too well with anything new. They've lost their childlike wonder. How do we fix this? Well, if we're looking at the human brain, there's a solution: neuroplasticity. The remarkable capacity to change its structure in response to new experiences, memories, and learning. The nested learning paper, my interpretation of it is this. We have the short-term memory, the equivalent of what it would be in the human brain. This is what allows you to listen to a story and not lose track of the progress. But you probably won't recall a lot of the details in 10 or 20 days. As you go throughout your life, certain things need to be stored in long-term memory. Think of it as another loop that's a little bit slower. Less things get stored there. It doesn't update quite as fast. A quickly moving short-term memory that updates fast and gets erased quickly. And then long-term memory where you store things for the long haul. In these large language models, we've had this short-term memory. That's kind of like the context window. If you upload documents and ask it questions, it can remember what the documents are about. But there's only so much it will hold in that short-term memory at any given time. And no matter how important that information is, it will never get stored to its long-term memory. Of course, a lot of these chatbots have workarounds. They have memory where conversations get summarized and stored. Remember this about this person? They like these things. But that's almost like a hack, a pseudo long-term memory, a workaround. What Google DeepMind is doing here is building something more real and permanent. Long-term memory where you store important things. The paper goes into detail about what important might mean. They describe how to mathematically represent what's important and what's not. One of the things they've talked about is surprise. Surprise is the difference between your world model and how it actually is. When you're surprised by something, you have to update your beliefs. And usually that means storing something in the long-term memory. For example, if I told you that honey is made out of flower nectar, you're probably not that surprised. But if I told you that bees drink that nectar, it's digested and then regurgitated into these little honeycomb-looking things so the water evaporates and it thickens. It's basically bee puke. That delicious honey we all like, they put it into those little bare bottles because they don't want you thinking about what it actually is. If you didn't know this before, we've just taken something from your short-term memory and put it into your long-term memory. Next time you're at a party and somebody brings up honey, you can regurgitate this fact for them. Because it's important, it surprised you, and now it's stored in your long-term memory. If this is what Google DeepMind is working on, that certainly seems like a big deal. The lack of continuous learning is seen by many as a big stumbling block for LLMs. Remember that whole thing where people would ask if there's a seahorse emoji? The LLM would erroneously think there is one and say, yes, here it is, with a horse emoji. Then it realizes it's not right, tries to backtrack, puts a unicorn and a starfish, realizes that's wrong, goes, just kidding, here's the real one, and outputs a whole string of different emojis. That's a seal, that's a shrimp, and it would go on like this for quite some time. When various large language models were playing Pokemon, Claude did it, GPT and Gemini, they kept doing the same silly mistakes. You'd think at some point they'd figure it out. But there wasn't anything to update their beliefs or knowledge. They could write things down, but that's not the same as learning on the fly. There was a movie called Memento about this. A person that couldn't form any memories past a certain point. No short-term memories getting sent to long-term memory. He had to jot things down, even tattoo things on himself. With LLMs doing goofy things, it seems similar. Unless it has a sticky note somewhere, it keeps blindly stumbling into the same thing. The ability to figure out what data is important, which learnings or details are important, and permanently adding it to its knowledge base, to its weights. That seems like a big deal. It could solve a lot of the issues we're having today. If this is where things are going, if 2026 will be the year of continual learning. Number 1, I think Google's going to do pretty well. Number 2, notice that they're publishing a lot of this information. They're sharing their research publicly. We gotta give them credit for that. They were the original attention is all you need paper publishers. They created the transformer architecture. They really kicked off this AI revolution we're seeing. And here it is, they're publishing this proof of concept, new design called Hope. It's a variant of the Titans architecture. The Titans architectures are long-term memory modules that prioritize memories based on how surprising they are. Honey is Puke. Aha, I'll keep that in mind. You will remember this video next time you have honey. What Hope is adding on top of Titans, a self-modifying recurrent architecture that can take advantage of unbounded levels of in-context learning, augmented with CMS blocks to scale to larger context windows. It can optimize its own memory through a self-referential process, creating an architecture with infinite, looped learning levels. Titans was published in December 2024, about exactly 1 year ago. This paper was roughly 11 months after that. I see Titans as more of a file drawer. Oh, this is important, I'll file it away. You keep filing important things away based on some criteria. This new Hope architecture is different. It's infinite looped learning levels. Not only is it filing things away, but it's continuously shuffling and reorganizing and adding and forgetting. That's the important part. Certain long-term memories should slowly fade away if you're not referencing them. If they're not that important, they should get replaced with new ones. The human brain is exactly what they're describing. It's infinite looped learning levels. 2024, we really had no long-term memory. By 2025, we had Titans filing it away into a filing cabinet. Now entering 2026, we have this next level. At least on paper, this research shows we can have something more akin to the human brain, with its continuous learning. Wild times ahead. In other news, we finally know what the new OpenAI device will look like. It will be a pen, or at least a pen-shaped device that integrates AI, aiming to become a third core device following the iPhone and MacBook. You can carry it in a pocket. You can wear it around your neck. It will feature a microphone and camera to perceive the user's environment. Interestingly, it can convert handwritten notes directly into text and instantly upload them to ChatGPT. If you have a pen, you can jot down notes and it transcribes as you're writing. It will be interesting to see how useful it is. Something with a camera and microphone that could be recording all the time. People don't necessarily like seeing that in public. Sometimes if I hold up my phone, people look at me weird if they think I'm recording them. We've heard of people attacked back in the days of Google Glasses. That's a whole separate thing they'll have to deal with. Interesting bit of news from the information.com. OpenAI ramps up audio AI efforts ahead of device. Looks like there's going to be its own special model powering this device. The device is largely going to be audio-based. And this new audio model is a lot better than the previous one. The previous one is pretty good, but there's a problem with how it handles interruptions. Sometimes you have to start speaking and get through the first few words before it stops. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever somebody sends me to the store to pick something up, get items 1, 2, and 3, make sure item 3 is this specific type. I always answer the same thing, text me what you need, or it's not happening. Coming back to our diagram of short-term and long-term memories. In people with ADHD, the short-term memory kind of looks like it has a hole in it. Whatever you told me to get from the store, it's already gone. Something that's intelligently able to remind you of things. If it's really fully fleshed out and effective, I can see that being a huge help. It can help people that struggle with memory. It can help the elderly make sure they turn the fire off before leaving the house. It can help forgetful people. The ability to speak into it to quickly take notes, there's less friction. And with AI's ability to figure out what's important, it makes it easier to get that information back when you need it. Even if you're one of those people always on top of everything, good for you, have a cookie. But even then, there will be some marginal benefit to having a device like this. I'm finding myself reaching more and more for AI. I use ChatGPT and Gemini 3. My usage has really went up quite a bit since Gemini 3 got released. It's surprisingly good at a lot of things. I've seen an acquaintance that has to deal with a person with a certain personality disorder. I'm just going to say it's BPD, borderline personality disorder. You might know it from TV shows like The Sopranos. Tony's mother has that personality disorder, and probably the sister too. Eminem, Marshall Mathers, apparently his mom, same thing. There's a few personality disorders in that cluster: borderline, narcissism, etc. That can be hard to diagnose, hard to deal with. It can be extremely unpredictable, very damaging. A good friend of mine was dealing with somebody with BPD in their life, often really struggling with it. Recently, with Gemini 3, they were able to put conversations into it and get some insights into why things were happening. I was really blown away by how well that worked. Often, if there's narcissistic rage or borderline rage, it comes out as a very toxic thing. It's hard to keep your cool, hard to understand why it's happening. It usually seems disconnected from reality. Intense or inappropriate anger that seems out of proportion to the situation. If you're on the receiving end, you're like, I don't know where this is coming from. It's really bad for relationships. What I saw was Gemini 3 very clearly outlined exactly what was going on. It took out all the anger, frustration, toxicity, and really broke down the root cause of what was happening. Of course, this could be really abused. Using Gemini 3 to psycho-diagnose other people can be a problem. In this particular case, used intelligently, carefully, by somebody that did a lot of research and understands the condition, using it almost like a dictionary. What I saw was night and day difference because of how easy it became. I've tested this with other situations. Neurodivergent people, or those with events in their past shaping their behavior. Giving something like Gemini 3. I have tested with other models, they're okay. Gemini 3 currently stands alone in its ability to get this kind of insight. It's incredibly insightful how it cuts to the root of the issue. Just give it enough context. It can really help navigate some of the more turmoil parts of relationships. Understand other people's viewpoints. Where it could be useful is for relationship advice, especially if you're dealing with something difficult. Obviously, there's all sorts of privacy and ethical concerns. Should you be recording a fight with a family member? Probably not. At least not without their consent. From my current perspective, we've all had situations where you can't believe someone is acting the way they are. Their behavior or words seem disconnected from reality. In the last 3-4 months, I've seen Gemini 3 able to translate what's happening. If you give enough context about the person and what's going on, it can often shine the light on why they might be behaving that way. I personally went like, wow, it really made me understand why certain behaviors are triggered. That's the first step towards understanding and resolving those issues. There's a lot of power here, but also a lot of opportunity for misuse. Anyways, I plan to do a predictions for 2026. I probably should have been doing it for the last 2 years, but I haven't. I'm going to start this year, make my predictions, then review them at the end of 2026 here live, to see what I was right about, what I was wrong about. One of the things will be, we'll have more benchmarks testing long-term horizon tasks. That usually includes the ability to store information to long-term memory. This continual learning plays into that perfectly. 2026 will see much more interesting benchmarks, where LMMs will pursue goals instead of just getting questions correct. My second prediction is we'll hear research being rolled out in continual learning. Maybe even see actual utilization in LMs we work with. Maybe we'll see that with Gemini 4, GPT-6, or Grok 5, Claude 5. Hopefully, we'll start seeing those being rolled out. I think that's exactly where we're going to see a massive leap on those benchmarks. Here's Vending Bench, for example. How well LMMs are able to run a vending machine over time. Things like this, once continual learning gets perfected and integrated, I think we're going to see these benchmarks really start to skyrocket. Right now, the scaffolding you build around it determines how well LLMs navigate. It seems like right now, they're little hacks or workarounds, because these models don't have long-term memory updates. If that gets fixed, I think that will be a huge unlock. Anyways, let me know what you think. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.